In 1830, the same year that the first canal boat arrived in Newark, the Ohio legislature granted its first railroad charter. Ohioans were becoming increasingly interested in this promising new form of transportation. The earliest Ohio railroads, like the canals, were laid out in a north-south line. By the 1850s, rail systems tended to follow an east-west orientation. As with roads, railroads initially radiated out from population centers like Newark. Local businessmen, anxious to make a profit, embraced this new technology in hopes of bolstering the economic climate of their town or region. Typically, a group of local investors would secure a state charter incorporating their railroad company. Next, they would sell stock to raise sufficient capital to build and equip that railroad. They would also seek subscriptions from communities along the proposed rail line. Licking County voters agreed to subscribe $60,000 to help defray the cost of building the Central Ohio Railroad through the county. Providing year-round service and able to be built almost anywhere, railroads offered a faster and more flexible means of transportation than did canals or roads. Early trains operated at 15 to 20 miles per hour, compared with the canal boats 4 miles per hour. Rail lines could also be joined into long-distance systems, linking markets hundreds of miles away. Railroads also provided important economic and social links between small towns and population centers like Newark. Utica, St. Louisville, Pataskala, Hanover, and Clay Lake, among others, became stops along Licking County rail routes. This 1900 railroad map of Ohio shows the 5 principal railroads that were built through Licking County during the 19th century. The blue line follows the route of the Sandusky, Mansfield, and Newark from its southern terminus in Newark to Sandusky on Lake Erie. The purple line represents the Central Ohio, which ran from Columbus through Newark on its way to Bel Air on the Ohio River. The green line traces the route of the Steubenville in Indiana, from Newark to Steubenville in Jefferson County. The orange line is the route of the Newark, Somerset, and Straitsville. It ran from Newark in the north to the coal fields of Perry County in the south. The Toledo and Central Ohio is the only railroad in Licking County that does not pass directly through Newark. The pink line follows its route. The Columbus and Lake Erie Railroad, chartered in 1845 to run north from Newark to Mansfield in Richland County, a distance of 62 miles, was Newark's first railroad. It was constructed to tap the populous, thriving, and productive counties of Richland, Knox, and Licking. In 1853, it merged with the Mansfield and Sandusky City Road to form the Sandusky, Mansfield, and Newark Railroad. In 1869, the railroad became part of the Baltimore and Ohio system, operating as the Lake Erie Division. The Bulletin was the first locomotive engine ever to come to Newark. Curious people from all over the county came to see this strange and mysterious monster. Its arrival in 1850 over the Columbus and Lake Erie Road symbolized the beginning of a new era of growth and wealth for Newark and Licking County. Newark's second railroad was the Central Ohio. Chartered in 1847, it ran from Columbus through Newark and Zanesville to Bel Air on the Ohio River. When construction started in the spring of 1850 on the second section between Newark and Zanesville, the builders had to make a long cut in very hard sandstone, 64 feet deep in some places in Black Hand Gorge. It took workers using picks, shovels, and blasting powder 12 months to complete the massive deep cut through the gorge. By January 1852, the Newark to Zanesville portion of the road was open for business. The Columbus to Newark section was completed in 1853. Because of financial difficulties, the Central Ohio, in 1865, sold half of its 33 miles of road between Columbus and Newark to the Panhandle or Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and St. Louis Railroad. A year later, the Baltimore and Ohio secured control of the Newark to Bel Air line, including the other half of the Columbus to Newark route. The Steubenville and Indiana line, chartered in February of 1848, became Newark's third railroad. Beginning construction in 1851, it was opened for traffic between Newark and Steubenville in April of 1855. By purchasing the half of the Central Ohio's line between Newark and Columbus, it gave the road much-needed western connections. The section of road between Columbus and Pittsburgh was named the Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and St. Louis Railroad and was commonly referred to as the Panhandle Route. Later, the Pennsylvania Railroad assumed control of the road. In 1880, the company erected new freight and passenger stations in Newark. Projected as early as 1854, the Newark, Somerset, and Straitsville was Newark's fourth railroad. Intended to be operated in connection with the Sandusky, Mansfield, and Newark Road to tap the coal fields of Perry County, financial difficulties caused by the Panic of 1857 and the Civil War delayed construction of this line until the early 1870s. After securing control of extensive coal lands in Perry County after the Civil War, a group of Newark investors revived interest in this project. Needing a way to get their coal to market, they completed the line to Shawnee by 1875. Soon after the road's completion, the Baltimore and Ohio acquired it. Originally known as the Atlantic and Lake Erie Railroad, the Toledo and Ohio Central was the last major railroad built in Licking County. Constructed in the 1880s, it was designed to penetrate the southeastern Ohio coal fields on its way from Toledo to Pomeroy. Unlike the previous railroads, the T&OC did not pass through Newark. The community failed to provide the necessary funding for the railroad to locate in the town. Instead, it entered Licking County near Licking Summit and followed the Old Canal to a point a few miles west of Newark. This road later became part of the New York Central System. The summer of 1877 witnessed the nation's first great industrial strike. On July 16th, the day the major railroads implemented their latest round of wage cuts, strikes started in Baltimore and Martinsburg, West Virginia. Strikes quickly spread to other states, including Ohio, as striking trainmen walked off the job. In Ohio, the strike began on Wednesday, July 18th, when firemen and brakemen began stopping B&O, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and St. Louis trains in Newark. Ignoring the warnings of Licking County Sheriff Samuel Schofield, hundreds of strikers occupied the railroad yards. 2 days later, fearing the situation was worsening, Schofield wired Ohio Governor Thomas Young for assistance. By Sunday, July 22nd, there were approximately 530 Ohio National Guard troops on duty in Newark. During the succeeding days, tensions ran high, as confrontations between demonstrators and guardsmen seemed imminent. A virtual stalemate ensued. Employing tactics like soaping the tracks, the strikers continued to prevent freight trains from running. The Guard, on the other hand, accomplished its mission, the preservation of life and property. On August 1st, with more than 1,000 state troops in Newark, B&O officials announced that all employees should report to work. Under the protection of the militia, 14 trains rolled out of Newark, while other cities like Baltimore, Maryland, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania experienced unprecedented violence and destruction of property. Relative calm prevailed in Newark throughout the strike. In all, a total of 14 states experienced varying degrees of disorder. President Rutherford B. Hayes, a fellow Ohioan, received telegrams from the governors of 9 states, including Ohio, requesting help in restoring domestic tranquility. Restoration of order, however, did not solve the larger issue at hand between capital and labor. Labor reform did not follow the restoration of law and order. The strikes did not last long enough to compel a change in public attitude or congressional reform. By the 1890s, Newark enjoyed the benefits of 3 railroads, the Baltimore and Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Toledo and Ohio Central. Newark's location made it the central point for the B&O system west of the Ohio River. The Columbus, Central Ohio, Shawnee, and Chicago divisions all met at Newark. For this reason, the company in 1873 built a large complex of repair shops on the eastern side of the city. These shops, the most extensive B&O works west of the Ohio, became Newark's most important manufacturing establishment, employing some 700 men. The B&O also employed a like number of men in the transportation service of the road, including conductors, engineers, firemen, brakemen, switchmen, and passenger and freight agents. On June 30th, 1961, the last Baltimore and Ohio passenger train left Newark. Nearly 24 years later, the last train to originate from Newark left the B&O yards on March 3, 1985. By this time, the B&O was part of the Chesapeake and Ohio, or Chessie system. Today, CSX and Conrail trains still pass over sections of the old Central Ohio line.